They mocked her in front of everyone, forgetting who she was married to. 13 minutes later, her husband walked in, and with one decision, every single person in management lost their job. Sophia Ellington entered the grand banquet hall of the Hilton Towers with quiet grace, her presence immediately drawing eyes. She was dressed in a stunning navy gown, simple yet elegant, the kind of style that reflected her confidence rather than extravagance. As the wife of Marcus Ellington, the visionary black CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, she was no stranger to large corporate gatherings. Tonight's dinner, hosted by Marcus's senior management, was supposed to be a celebration of their company's newest achievements and upcoming projects. But from the moment Sophia sat at the long table surrounded by executives and their families, she sensed the chill beneath the polished smiles. At first, it was the sideways glances, the smirks quickly exchanged across the table, and the half-hearted greetings dripping with condescension. Soon the whispers began, just loud enough for her to hear. One executive muttered to another, "She doesn't look like she belongs here." And a woman across the table chuckled softly, eyeing Sophia's gown with clear disdain. A senior manager raised his glass, smirking, "To luck," the kind that puts some people in rooms they'd never reach on their own. Laughter rippled around the table, sharp and cruel, as if her worth began and ended with Marcus's name. Sophia's hands tightened around her glass, but her face remained calm, her posture unshaken. She had lived through challenges far harsher than shallow insults, and she knew that silence could sometimes be more powerful than words. Inside, though, the sting was real. Each remark was meant to remind her that, in their eyes, she was an outsider in a world of old money and corporate pride. Yet what none of them realized was that their arrogance had already sealed their fate. The clock had started ticking, and within minutes, their lives would change forever. Marcus entered the banquet hall a few minutes later, his presence commanding attention the moment he stepped through the doors. Tall, poised, and confident in a tailored black suit, he greeted a few executives warmly before joining Sophia at the table. Almost instantly, he noticed the atmosphere, too stiff, too forced, with awkward glances darting toward his wife. He leaned slightly toward Sophia, asking quietly if she was all right. She smiled gently, her strength masking the sting of what had just unfolded, but Marcus could sense the truth in her eyes. As dinner progressed, the executives continued their casual cruelty, this time emboldened by Marcus's arrival. One joked about new money learning how to dine, while another smirked, hinting that some wives need lessons in corporate etiquette. The laughter that followed was sharp, dismissive, and Marcus's expression hardened with every word. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he observed each person, noting who joined in the mockery and who stayed silent but complicit. His silence was heavy, deliberate, and unsettling. Sophia gently touched his hand beneath the table, silently urging restraint, but Marcus's jaw tightened. The humiliation of his wife wasn't just personal. It was a violation of respect, a principle on which he had built his company. He raised his glass calmly, his deep voice cutting through the chatter. "Respect," he said slowly, "isn't optional. It's the foundation of leadership, of partnership, of trust. Without it, everything else crumbles." The room quieted instantly, the laughter fading into an uneasy hush. But Marcus wasn't done. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes sweeping across the table with quiet fire. They thought they had embarrassed Sophia, but in truth, they had exposed themselves. And Marcus, though silent for now, was already preparing a response that none of them would ever forget. The tension in the room thickened as Marcus's words lingered in the air, silencing even the most arrogant smirks. Yet within moments, a few of the executives tried to recover their false confidence, brushing off his statement with nervous chuckles. One of them, clearly emboldened by years of unchecked privilege, leaned back smugly and muttered, "Strong words, Marcus, but this is business, not a sermon. Let's focus on what really matters." The others nodded in forced agreement, eager to move past what they assumed was a fleeting outburst. Marcus, however, remained still, his calm more intimidating than any outburst could ever be. His eyes shifted to Sophia, her quiet grace and dignity a stark contrast to the cruelty they had shown her. That moment solidified his decision. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was about principle, about drawing a line no one would dare cross again. He slowly placed his napkin on the table and leaned forward, his deep voice steady but sharp. "You've forgotten what really matters," he said, each word deliberate. "Respect for the people who stand beside you. Without that, business is nothing more than greed dressed in suits." The room fell into uneasy silence once again, but Marcus's gaze didn't waver. He had seen enough. Their arrogance, their disrespect, their hollow laughter. It had all revealed the truth. These were not partners but liabilities. Sophia, sensing the shift in him, remained composed, her hand resting lightly on his arm as if anchoring him. Marcus didn't explode with anger, nor did he allow their words to provoke him further. Instead, he carried himself with the quiet certainty of a man who held all the power in the room, and soon, he would prove it in a way that would shake their world to its core. As the executives exchanged uneasy glances, Marcus calmly reached for his phone. The simple act made the entire boardroom tense, as though they sensed a storm was about to break. Without raising his voice or showing anger, he dialed a secure number, his composure radiating power. "This is Marcus Ellington," he said evenly, his tone unshaken. "Effective immediately, terminate the Harrington partnership and suspend all joint projects. Draft the public statement tonight." On the other end, his legal team responded without hesitation. "Understood, sir." The silence in the boardroom was deafening. Every executive, once so smug, now sat frozen, realizing the magnitude of what had just happened. Marcus didn't look at them as he placed his phone down, only glancing briefly toward Sophia, who gave the faintest nod of approval. Then, in a voice calm but razor-sharp, he addressed the room. "You see, gentlemen, you may mock me, insult my wife, and pretend you hold the power. But in truth, your entire empire depends on me. And I will not do business with those who have no dignity." Panic spread like wildfire across the table. Some tried to protest, others begged to reconsider, but Marcus had already made his decision. He rose to his feet with the quiet confidence of a man who didn't need to explain himself twice. His presence filled the room, his silence louder than their desperate pleas. Sophia stood gracefully beside him, her head held high, the picture of strength. Together, they walked toward the exit, leaving behind a boardroom full of pale faces and shattered egos. In that moment, Marcus had turned humiliation into triumph, not by shouting, but by reminding them that true power lies not in wealth or titles, but in respect and principle. By the next morning, the police station was in chaos. Internal affairs agents swarmed the building, pulling files, downloading body cam footage, and quietly escorting officers into private rooms for questioning. The cops who had harassed Marcus the night before now sat in those very same chairs, sweat beading on their foreheads. Their earlier arrogance had been replaced by a silent dread. The sergeant tried to defend their actions, but the evidence was clear: racial profiling, unlawful detention, and violation of multiple protocols. Word spread quickly through the department. The man they had mistreated was not only innocent, but a decorated federal security advisor with close ties to the Justice Department. In the city's newsrooms, headlines began to form, and by noon, the story was breaking on every major network. "Racial bias leads to major federal investigation," one headline read. Outside, cameras flashed as reporters gathered, demanding answers. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner office at the federal building, Marcus watched the coverage on a flat-screen TV. He didn't gloat, didn't smile. He simply sipped his coffee, knowing justice was moving exactly as it should. A knock at the door brought in the director herself. "Marcus," she said, "those officers have been suspended pending further investigation. The department is facing a federal audit. This isn't just about you. This will change how they operate." Marcus nodded, finally leaning back in his chair. "Good. No one else should have to go through what I did." That evening, as he stepped out into the cool air, his phone buzzed. It was a text from one of the agents. "It's done. They'll never forget your name. Marcus slipped the phone into his pocket and walked away, the city lights reflecting in his calm eyes. He hadn't just cleared his own name. He'd made sure the system felt the weight of its own actions. If the story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. For more powerful stories like this, subscribe now to Black Stories and be part of our journey.